Hi guys, and welcome back to askNK. So today we're going to be taking a very straightforward, simplified walkthrough of the Substance Alchemist. A lot of videos which we've found online or which you've seen online, you notice that they are actually targeted at just doing a specific thing. And no one is actually dedicated to showing you how this thing works. And that's why we're doing this walkthrough. You can check out other walkthroughs which we've done for other videos. And I'm going to put a couple of links in the description. So if you want to get Substance Alchemist, you can go over to the Substance website at Algorithmic, and there you will be able to find the Substance launcher. And if you have a subscription, of course, you're going to be able to get the Substance Alchemist. So let's start off with this, and let me go ahead and explain how the UI works, and then we'll try as much as possible to create and play with certain tools that exist here. First and foremost, you will notice the logo for the Substance Alchemist. Pretty nice logo. Then the next thing which you're going to notice is everything seems to be in trees, so you can see explore, inspire, and create. Then of course you're going to see here, they're all in trees. There's also 1 2 3 here, there's also 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and 1 2 3. So I think there is something about 3 that makes a lot of sense. So probably it could be because this is Alchemist, so there is Substance Painter and Substance, what's it called again? Designer, and now Alchemist. So within the Explore, what you can find here are basically materials that you have, so you're going to be able to find them here. So within this part, these are the basic materials that you get to find with Substance Alchemist. If you have a subscription, of course, once you purchase them, you can go ahead and, just like I did here, create a new folder. So you can create a new folder, or you can import yours from here. So if you go over to Substance Source, these are all free. So I imported the files which I downloaded for free from there. And if you want to delete them, you can simply select and go ahead and simply hit delete. All right. Now that is for the Explore. Over to the Inspire. So within the Inspire, what happens is, so first of all, let's go ahead and simply create something simple. So I'm just clicking on this so that we can get this here. And by the way, if you want to know how you can change this, we're going to get to that part really soon. So within the Inspire, you will be able to get in other materials that you can use to generate other colors. And just before we talk about colors, you might have noticed that once I clicked on this, there was a sidebar that appeared. And now this sidebar has to do with the material properties. So all the properties that this material has, you can be able to tweak them from here. And so if I click here and go over to something like green, I can have a green color. If I want to change the seam or want to change the color of the stitches here, I can just simply change this all the way to white, and I can make them not shiny. I can change how they look, and the same thing goes for all the other underlying properties that you can find here. So you can go ahead and play with this to your heart's content. All right. Secondly, you also notice that this material contains a couple of presets, so we can toggle across these presets to see which one works for us at any given time, and then we can go ahead and use it for whatever thing which we want to do. So just speaking about this, you would also notice that I did not click on this button. So this button doesn't seem to work. I think it's a bug. Probably it's going to be fixed before the final version is out. And yeah, so this doesn't work. Let's go ahead and talk about the Inspire. So with this here, if we go over to the Inspire, the reason why they have this Inspire is so that you can get ideas from other materials. Okay, so this is a very simple illustration which I'm using, but I'm going to go ahead and explain how this works. So from within the Inspire tab, or within the Inspire window, you would notice that we have material variation and color extraction. So what happens is this, that you get to load a certain color or a certain image here, and you can use this image to generate different variations of this material. And you might have also noticed that from the Explore, here changes from properties to color. All right, how can we get this working? I'm going to stretch and go ahead and get, say, a texture from one of our thumbnails. I'm getting a thumbnail from a previous video which we did, say make it burn. So in case you want to know more about this video, how you can create lava and all that, link is going to be in the description. You can also check that out. All right, so once you load up a new image here, it's going to go ahead and analyze the image and come up with 4 distinctive colors. All right, so if I choose to come through, and stretch and bring in something that has to do with Blender, you notice that it stretches and sorts out this. If I go ahead and bring something like this, something that had to do with AKEYTSU, of course you're going to also notice that it picks the very major colors. All right, so if the colors are not popping, obviously you're not going to be able to find that. So once we have this going for us, we're going to click on generate variation. All right, so you can click on generate variation, and automatically you might have noticed that it generates just the very first one. Okay, it generates this first one, and this is not what we want. We want it to go ahead and get different variations of this material using this color. So we're going to turn this on. I'm going to clear this and click on generate variations. All right, so it's going to go ahead and sort these things out and get us something interesting. All right, but now you might have also noticed that now we are having more of white seams, contrary to what we had earlier. So if you want to get a mixed seam, of course you need to turn this off and generate this, and then you're going to go ahead and get something like this. And so with this done, you may also want to, you know, go ahead and start working with the object. So let's say we're satisfied with the texture, or we're satisfied with the material which we've generated. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to go to create. Now, but before you go to create, you will notice that we have a small place that has to do with libraries here, right? So what we can do is we can pick this and drop it here. So just in case we want to work with multiple stuff, we can just pick them, drop them here, so that it will be easy for us to sort them out when we start working with this thing. So I can select this red and drop it there, pick this black and also drop it directly there. So once I'm done with whatever I want to do here, I would go ahead and click on create. So now I am within the create. You'll notice I have a very simple plane, and now this at this point is where I'm going to talk about the navigation. So with your left mouse button, if you click and drag left and right, you can orbit around the object. With the right mouse button, if you click and drag, you can, you know, push in and pull out. With your middle mouse button, if you click and drag, you can pan around your object. All right, so you can pan, you can push in and push out, you can orbit around your object. And you might have also noticed that we have a dome light or a skybox depending on where you're coming from. All right, so for you to actually move this, or you want to change the position, if you hold down shift, use the right click, you can change the position of the light wherever you want it to be in your scene. All right, so with this done, you might have also noticed that what we have here is a simple plane. But what if you want to change this plane to something else? All right, so let's say we want to change this plane to a box or something. Now we're going to talk about these other three. So for these ones here, once we go ahead and click on this button, it gets to show us the viewer settings. So within the viewer settings, we can change this and say we don't want to create a 1K map. We can go ahead and create a 4K map. We can create a 2K map. But I think for the basis of this walkthrough, we're just going to keep it at 1K. If you want to get tiling, this is where your tiling works. So just in case you want to tile your textures properly, this is where your tiling works. The next thing which you're going to notice is we'll have a button, or we'll have a menu called meshes. So if I click on this mesh, this is where I can change it to whatever I want it to be. So we have it as a cube, a rounded cube. You remember the guy called Matt? Of course, we have him here as well. We can also take a preview, a shader preview. We also have a rounded cylinder, which you can play with. We have a sphere, and we also have a cylinder. All right, so you can play with any of these just to get around with whatever you're making. So I'm going to just simply stick with a plane for now. And within the environment, once you turn this up, you can change these environments to whatever environment you want. If you have HDRIs you want to load, you can use this to load it. If you want your environment to be visible, you can just simply turn this on and you can get a very visible environment where you can do all of your shading. All right, under the shader, this is where I'm going to show you where this ties. All right, so within the shader, this is how much samples you want to get at every single point when you're walking. We'll talk about this displacement just in a moment, all right? So I'll talk to you guys about this displacement soon. Next thing which you're going to notice is here is where you get to set the channels. So if you've worked in Substance Designer or in Substance Painter, you will know that there are various channels that you can work with, and these channels are actually tied to the workflow or the material type you're making. So if you're making a specular material type, of course the channels are different. If you're making a metallic material type, all right, of course the channels are also different. So if you choose to, or if you want to see these channels whenever you're working, or let's say you want to see them when you're working and you don't want to have this bar, you have to switch this from 3D to 2D, all right, or you can switch it from 3D to 3D and 2D. So I'm going to pick out whatever I had before, so I'm just going to drop this mod here. Okay, so if I drop this mod, you can see we have the mod here, and you're noticing all of these material types, that all of these texture types are here. So if we go over to the normals, you can see the normals here. If we go over to the specular, gloss, you can see all of them in their full glory directly here. And once you're tired of looking at this, you can just simply switch to 3D, and there you're going to have your 3D stuff going for you. All right. So now we are in create. We've explained here, and we are in create. So within create, you would also notice that the minute we attach this object here, this turned to layers, and now we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, we've not talked about this tree here, and we have just 1, 2. So within here is where you can load a custom filter. So if you have a custom filter that you've worked on, of course you can load it from here. Within this part is where you load the filters that exist. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys about a couple of filters that exist here and how you can make use of them. Then maybe just set you guys off, then you can go ahead and start working with as many stuffs that exist around the internet, right? Okay, so I would like to come back here and simply, I think this is the one I selected. Let me get this in the mix and throw this there, so we can have something like that. I'm also going to just simply close this, and so that we can look at this. All right, so here gets to do with your displacement, and if you check out this earlier, you would notice that we have this displacement quality. So if I crank this displacement quality up, it gets to do with the subdivision of what we're working with. So you see it says tessellate, right? If we don't want to get in displacement, we can turn this off, and there will be no form of displacement whatsoever, right? So if I turn on the tessellation and start increasing this, I want you to notice how our object starts displacing all the way up. All right, so this should make a lot of sense for you guys, and you can use this to turn down the displacement quality. So it's not going to be very subdivided, and here once you turn it down, and this, it's going to be a bit more subdivided, right? And you might have also noticed that we have shadow. So if I turn this shadow on, I can increase and reduce the opacity of the shadow. I don't know if you guys can see. Okay, and this is what this does. So if you turn this off, you disable the shadow, you turn up the shadow, and if you want to get access to the displacement, you can use this to actually get access to the displacement. All right, so I'm just going to turn this up just a little bit, actually turn it just a little bit like that. All right, this is a bit spiky. I think this is still a bug, so probably they are going to fix all of these tiny issues. Okay, so I'm just going to drop this just up to that point. Okay, so the next thing which you might have also noticed is the minute I dropped the second one, we had this going on here. Okay, so this automatically gets to blend with what we have underneath here, and Alchemist actually has a way of blending stuff. So you can blend from top to bottom, you can blend by height map, you can also choose to blend by color and all that stuff. So if you want to blend by color, you get to select the color which you want to blend by. If you want to blend by the height map, you can use the height map. If you want to also blend from top to bottom, once you use this, you will notice we have something going on here. So I switch this from bottom to top, so it's going to blend all the way from bottom to top, and we can use the height, all right, to mix this in. All right, so we can use the height to start mixing what we have. All right, so I'm using the height offset to mix this in, and at the same time you can choose to use the contrast to actually soften this a little bit more. And you might have been wondering, or you are wondering right now, that all the way down, what's going on here? All right, so I'm going to explain what's going on here for you guys. So if I turn this off and select just this object as it is, you would notice that this object has something called technical parameters. Now, these are the parameters that exist only on this object. All right, I'm going to turn this object off and turn this back on and select this particular one as it is, as a simple and single object. You will notice it has its own parameters going on here. So once we start making a blend, something like this, you would notice, I'm just going to click, you would notice that we have the basic parameter that deals with the entire blending, and just about down here you're going to notice a mixture of what we're having here and a general advanced parameter going on. Okay, so all of the pattern, all of this wear and tear gets to do with whatever material you're working on at any given time. All right, if you want to actually if you're feeling lucky or you're feeling happy and you want the computer to actually generate something random for you, if you go ahead and click on the random seed, it's going to go ahead and, you know, generate something quite random. All right, this might not really work, it wouldn't work so much now. I will show you more with the filter. So for this, I'm just going to turn this a little bit down and maybe just turn the contrast, maybe something like that. Then for the top material scale, this actually gets to do with tiling. So if you get to push this, it starts scaling the material on top. All right, so the material on the top, it starts tiling the material from one end to the other. All right, so this is how this actually works, and you can still use the invert to invert the mask. This, I've not actually seen why this works, but I'll go ahead and try this. If I can find how it works, of course I'm going to share it with you guys. All right, so I'm keeping this at what it is already, and let's go over to advanced and see what we can get. So within this advanced, this is where you can choose to display various things. So if you want to display the mask, if you want to also show the height adjustment, you can turn all these things on. So once I click on this, you can see I have something I can go ahead and play with. So depending on whatever thing you're making, you can play with those things and see how they best suit you. So I'll go ahead and talk to you guys about how you can use the effect layers. So if you click here, you're going to see various adjustment layers that you can work with. So there are very notable ones that I would like you guys to play with. There's a lot basically, so but I'll share with you guys about, let's say, 3 or 4 that you guys can go ahead and play with. And the very first one is I think the first one for me gets to do with the color variation. All right, so if you click on the color variation, you would notice that automatically that you can start spitting out various colors from here. All right, so these are various color counts that you can get. So if you push it all the way down to this point, it's calculating and it's giving us that. If I push it over to 4, this is what I have. So if I say I want to get various colors, I can select different colors from here, and let's just go ahead and throw in a little bit more, so something that's a bit contrasting. I think we need a blue, something like that. All right, so if I spin this, you can see what I can get. If I go ahead and spin this, you can see what I can get. So what's going on here is we have various color counts, right? And so with the color counts that we're getting, if I come through and start throwing in different colors from these parts, let's say I'm throwing in this one here, and actually let's throw in a black, we've not seen that. If I start throwing in different colors, you're going to notice that automatically it would be generating various things for us, right? And it still stores these colors. That's the cool thing. So if you go all the way to 10 and you load up 10 different colors and start scrolling back and forth, it still saves these colors and you can use them at any point in time. All right, so now we have this. So let's say we want to keep this at something like that. And if this is comfortable for you, you can export this out and use it for whatever thing you want to do. And so this is one of the ones which I think is quite interesting that you can play with. The next one which I think it's cool that you should actually try is the one that gets to do with dirt, right? So if I click on the dirt, it's going to go ahead and apply dirt to my surface. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I may probably just turn the mod off, so I can just simply have just this default thingy. And you would notice, actually let me turn this off so you can see the difference. So we have this very clean tire thingy going on here. If I turn on the dirt, you can see I have the dirt thing happening here, right? So with this I can increase the quantity. All right, I can increase the quantity I want, so I can just turn this all the way up or turn it all the way down. So I can drop it about this. Actually, first of all, I think we should change the color so that it will be something way more visible than what I have here. And I might just simply go a little bit overboard with this. Okay, so something like that. Maybe just a little bit more. So something like this should be fine. All right. So we have something like this. So this, you can notice that we have the dirt happening there. So I can increase or reduce this. All right. So if I go down to all these tiny parts, you can see we're having dirt mixed with these things, right? I can choose to blur this so it gets a little bit blur, right? Or I can just turn up the spread. Okay, so this might not really be so visible, so let me just throw in something that is quite let me just turn that off so we can actually take a good look at this. All right, so if I go ahead and turn the quantity, you can see we have a lot more dirt happening here. And if I choose to blur this out, let me actually zoom in. So if I choose to blur this out, we'll kind of blurring this, so I can turn this down and turn this all the way up. If you have edges you want to protect, so let's say we have various edges like this we want to protect, and you start pushing this, you can see it starts creating some sort of mask automatically around these edges for you. All right, so it starts to create this sort of mask automatically around these edges. So this is also another very interesting cool filter I think you should try. Let's play with a different mesh and see. So if I go ahead and throw in a sphere, you can see what we can create here. Amazing looking cool stuff. Okay, so let's go back to this, what we have. All right, so now we have this. We've actually taken a look at 1 and 2. All right, so you can see you can start mixing all these things together just to get something interesting. And at the same time, all of these things have their own blending functions, right? So now I'm throwing in this dirt. I can choose to come here and say, you know what, I don't want this to be a multiply. I would like this to be maybe an add. So I can just throw in an add, and you can see what we have here. I can still choose to say I would like this to be a simple overlay. I can still choose to come through and make this a divide. All right, so this way you can, you know, create interesting stuff and go ahead and play with them and see how they work for you. Next off, we will talk about 1 or 2 more. So I think a lot of people might have seen this, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about this one. And this one has to do with rust. Okay, so for the rust works a little bit like the dirt, right? So a little bit like the dirt, but this will be way better if you're making materials for things that have to do with metallic stuff. All right, so let's say you're making an iron, copper, or maybe something that's old. Of course you can use this, and they all have it has a very similar working approach compared to what you can get with the dirt. I can choose to go all the way up, so I can rust this totally, and I can turn this down. This is not the best example in the world, but I guess you guys get the idea. All right, so next off, we can also choose to do something that has to do with embroidering stuff. All right, so we can emboss, we can embroider, and we can also choose to add water. So now we've looked at some of these filters. My advice is you should go ahead and play with them and see how they work for you. I would actually like to use something called a gravel generator, right? So this actually generates gravels around your object. So you can turn down the quantity of gravels you want to have, and you can still go ahead and bump them all the way up depending on what you want to get. So we can put some there, so let me just go ahead and just put just a little bit around, not so much. Maybe we can play with the roundness, and maybe we could just leave it like this, right? So you remember the time where we were within the explore, I showed you guys a couple of things. So I'm just going to go through and open them up. So within these generators, you would notice we have various generators, and a lot of people don't talk about this, but these generators are things that you can use to generate different stuffs around your object. All right, so let's say I want to add some forest moss, for example. So if I drag this and drop it directly here within the create tab, I can drag this and drop directly over my object. Okay, so if I choose to start blending this is what happens. It sets it to blend, and then it starts generating this set of moss for us. All right, so if I simply click this, and let's go ahead and just turn this off, I can choose to tile this as much as I want. I can also choose to say I would like this to blend from top to bottom, or from bottom to top, depending on what you're going for. This is totally for you, so I can choose to do that. I can choose to also blend based off color or based off the curvatures directly here. So depending on what you're going for, you can go ahead and, you know, play with this and see how it all stacks up for you. And so if you're done making your materials, then the next thing which you would want to do is probably save. And so you have this button to actually save. If you want to make a new material, you can use this to start off a new material. And at the end of the day, we cannot call this complete if we don't export this. So once you go ahead and click on this button, you'll be able to simply click this and make sure everything is set properly and export. We can choose to export in any of this file format that exists. So let's say we want to export as JPEG, or you want to export as PNG or EXR, or even as a substance file. Of course, you can make all of those changes here and simply export this. All right, so this is basically how you can walk around using the Substance Alchemist, and a couple of things that you can do with it. I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. If you like this tool, I would like to know what your thoughts is. And I know a lot of people are saying that this is a direct competition with the Quixel mixer, and yes, of course they are right, because there is a lot of similarities between these two, and for some reason I actually think that this might be a reply of the Substance team or the algorithmic team to Quixel. Now, knowing fully well that they've been some sort of head-to-head when it comes to do with texturing, and at the same time, I think Quixel has a bit of an edge since they have more scanned object, and on the other hand, you shouldn't also forget the fact that Substance has a Substance source where you can go ahead and download a couple of things that you would like to use when making your materials. So I would like to know what you guys use. I would like to know if this video is helpful to you guys, and if you like this video, simply give it a like, and don't forget to turn on notification, because we will be doing a giveaway very soon at the end of the month. And if you are new here, it's going to be amazing if you can just hit the subscribe button and also turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload which we would be making. And until I see you guys again with a tutorial review, walkthrough video like this, Free Friday, tips and tricks, things like this, peace.